Record?
Yeah.
All right, shall we start? Yeah. All right, everybody. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Good morning. Let me just try and share my screen a second. Okay. Can we see? Yeah, great.
I can see well.
Okay, cool. Okay, hi. My name's Nick. Nick Simpson. All right. Nice to meet you guys. And I'll be going through this sort of panel session on teaching presentations. I've called it the good, the bad, and the ugly, mostly just as a catchy kind of title. But it's kind of, you know, the point is to look at the positives and the negatives. We've been teaching online, teaching presentation classes online, which has been interesting. And well, let me just introduce myself first a little bit, and then my co-presenters. So my name's Nick. I'm from the UK, and I've been living and working in Korea for maybe 10 years or so, with a few breaks in between in different places. And I'm now at the University of Ulsan with Ria and Annika. I don't know if you guys want to introduce yourselves, or you're probably quite familiar with you already.
We can. Annika, you first.
Sure. Hi, my name is Annika Casem. I teach alongside Ray and Nicholas. I've been in Korea for about 5 years now, and my background in teaching is communication and English, and I did my master's degree in communication studies as well, and I ended up teaching for about 2 years in the States, teaching presentation. And so doing it online and with English language learners has been very interesting.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rhea, and I work with these fabulous people, and I'm very lucky. Can everyone see me okay? I'm also joining this on my phone, so I can't see myself, but I first came to Korea in 2002, and my first teaching job, I'll throw in a little thing that maybe people don't know, was when I was 14. I was a sign language teacher. And undergrad in psychology, master's in rhetorical writing and digital media. And before the pandemic, I flipped my classes and did a lot of tech stuff. So when the pandemic began, it was a fairly smooth transition. And I did teach a few presentation classes offline in some business English, as well as some summer sessions. But this has been the first semester to try teaching them online. And we are currently teaching, like, all of my classes, at least in my schedule, are all presentation classes. So it's been really interesting, and I'm looking forward to talking about how it's been going for us.
Yeah, and thanks guys. That's great. So that's kind of the thinking behind this panel. The fact that we have all been doing this for like the last half semester, basically exclusively teaching presentations. And then we wanted to kind of like have a place to discuss it and see and share what we've found out, the good things and the bad things, and see if you guys have got, you know, if you want to join in and chip in and you know, with your experiences, that would be great. So let's we will begin. So first of all, I'll just quickly outline what we're going to go through. So I'll talk a bit about the context, like our context and the curriculum that we teach. So the kinds of lessons that we do and activities and how students are assessed. Then we'll move on to a kind of discussion between us, the three of us who work together. And then the idea is to kind of throw it out. I guess we don't have, there is 9 people. So we'll put it out to sort of discussion, and so we can, you know, align your experiences to ours, or if you found something different that works for you or that doesn't work. Okay, so let's just, I guess, during the session, think about kind of two things really, which is the challenges that we found of teaching presentations skills online, and also, you know, the opportunities, because there are some things that definitely work quite well doing it on Zoom. So I guess, yeah, that's it. Just we think about the good things and the kind of things that have been difficult for us to do. So first I'll go with a bit of context about our situation. So we all teach around 8 or 9 classes in a week, and that's in total that's something like 230 plus students in total. And as I said, they're all doing the same thing. So we're all doing presentations. So that's a lot of presentations to watch and grade, but that's how it is. These students are in different majors. It could be electrical engineering, you know, history, economics, whatever it might be, and they're all different levels, which can, you know, pose a bit of a challenge. Lower levels. We use a series of textbooks predominantly called Present Yourself. And so there are I think two different levels with that. So it's set out quite well, and it's it kind of walks students through presentation structure, presentation skills. So it's quite good for that. So the way that it works, that the students have during the semester 6 presentations that they need to make. So that accounts for 50% of their final grade. These presentations are not, you know, academic really. They're not about their major that they're studying. They're very familiar things. So it'd be like my best friend, you know, a place that I've visited, you know, my favorite possession, things like something I own, you know, show and tell type thing. And they get longer throughout the semester as students' confidence and ability hopefully increases. And they also present to larger groups of students throughout the semester. So they, you know, initially it's face-to-face with just one other student practicing in a pair, and that increases as we go through to make it more like an actual presentation by the end of the semester. The course is split into lecture classes and presentation classes. So there are 2 types of classes, which I'll explain a bit more about in a minute. And then students have a final test, which is actually giving a presentation about something from their major that they're studying in front of the class live on Zoom. So they actually go from, you know, just a one-to-one kind of mini presentation about something familiar with a friend or with a, you know, classmate. And then by the end, the idea is to have them doing a full kind of presentation to a group. Like I said, we have lecture classes where we use the book, Present to Yourself, and those are predominantly based on, I guess, skills. So, you know, how to structure a presentation, also the actual, you know, delivery of a presentation. It also includes some language, which can be used when making presentations. So we have a lot to pack in the time. So our classes are 2 hours, well, 2 50-minute sessions that the students have per week. So there's a lot to actually fit in to each lecture class. One of the challenges that we might talk about later, is deciding what to include from the textbook in the lesson. You know, do you skip some of the language stuff to cover the techniques? Do you sort of assume that they know the techniques, and then do you sort of focus on the language to make sure that they're actually saying what they need to be saying? So that's a balance that needs to be struck, and I think all of us do it slightly differently. There's no one size fits all. It depends on the class, depends on the instructor. So the students go, you know, 1 week, one of the weeks they alternate. They have a lecture class, and then the following week they do a presentation based on what they studied in the lecture class. So, you know, so let's say the topic is one of the ones I mentioned before, talk about your best friend. That's the topic in the textbook. Their homework assignment is to prepare a presentation based on what they have studied. And in the following week, after preparing for at home, they do the presentation in the class live on Zoom to their partner. So we alternate like that. So one week is, like I said, textbook, lecture. Following week's presentation, we're back again, like that. Little bit more context. So as I mentioned, the students prepare their presentations according to the focus in the lectures. Students arrive at the presentation, class is ready. Okay, so they have their plan. They have their maybe a script that they're going to talk about, and they have a PPT. So all presentations must have a PPT. That's one of our kind of rules. So they arrive having prepared this at home, and then we put them into breakout rooms of 2 or 3, depending on what stage they're at in the semester. As I said earlier on, it's 2, moves to 3, finally, 5, and then the whole class presentation for their final assessment. Then students make recordings of their presentations as they're doing them in the breakout rooms. So they record on Zoom, record their own presentations on Zoom, save the files, convert the files to YouTube videos, and then share them with us and with their fellow students in order for us to give feedback and grading. That's some of the teachers, some of the lecturers do this in a different way in terms of how students actually submit their presentations. But it's something similar to this. Okay, we have 2 Easter eggs. Thank you. Do you want to talk about the? I don't know. Do you want to tell everyone, or I can do it later?
We want to do it now. That's okay. So if you're here and you need your Easter eggs, the first Easter egg number 1 is Back to the Future. Easter egg number 2 is Blue Bayou. And I will be also putting those further into the chat towards the end of the panel.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so that's the kind of the way that we get them to actually have like a physical, well, not physical, but a recording of their presentation. I do it slightly differently. I actually make them do a recording for homework previous to the presentation class, and then they can use the PPT from that in the class. But like I said, it's similar. It works in a similar way. Okay, so then in terms of feedback, we grade according to rubrics. We try and do it as immediately as possible, at least before the next lesson, so they have something to take into the next lesson to improve. We also use a forum, university kind of forum, to have students submit their videos, which means that students can comment on each other's presentations, which gives a good opportunity for sort of peer learning, peer feedback. I think for me, that's kind of one of the most important things. We'll talk about that later, I think, in the discussion, but having the opportunity to see your classmates' videos and get ideas from that when you're not actually able to speak to them face to face and discuss what needs to be done and how to improve. I think that's quite important. Students then perform a self-evaluation after each presentation. So one of the good things about the textbook is that at the back of the book there's a self-evaluation page based on the unit, the topic, and they just decide whether they did a good job on this, or they need to improve this, or did they include this or miss this, or so it helps them to think about how to improve for the next round. So it will be things like this in the self-evaluation. Did I greet the audience? Did I include interesting information? Did I, have a good introduction and a good conclusion? It's not, as you can see, it's not really sort of, I guess, deep philosophical, things to think about. It's very simple. Did I smile? Which people often forget to do, and I'm guilty of that myself, being a bit too serious. So, yeah, something to think about. And so they just do that. It's a short job. It takes them maybe 5 minutes maximum, I think, to go through that. But at least it gives them something to reflect on before the next time. And these are some of the things that we kind of try and drum into the students throughout the semester. So as I said, sort of smile and be engaging. Make sure your PPT is interesting, and not just interesting, but has good spelling and proper titles and capitalization and all that stuff, which is often a massive issue. We look at posture, eye contact, body language. Are you putting too much text on your PPT? That's another massive issue that students have, is they actually tend to sort of cut and paste all of their script onto the PPT and sort of read straight off it. So trying to get them away from that kind of thing. Clear and organized structure, and have they practice? So trying to encourage them to practice as much as possible. And then, do they have these things in their presentation? Do they have a greeting? Do they have an opener or a hook and a preview? Do they have good content? And I have to say, in my experience with my students, the content tends not to be the issue. They tend to all generally come up with reasonable things to talk about, but it's all of the other things surrounding that. So structuring, did you include a review? Did you actually, say thank you at the end? Did you have a closer? So those are the things I tend to end up working on more than the content and the body of the presentation, which is usually fairly okay. So that's a bit of context about our presentation courses that we teach in Ulsan. From my experience so far, it's going pretty well. I think it works, and it's been well put together, the course. I can certainly see the students who are engaging are improving. You can definitely see week by week improvement, which is great, which I think is kind of all you can ask for, really. And they have a lot of chance to practice. So I should have probably mentioned that during the actual presentation practice class, not the lecture class, but the practice one where they do the presentation, we allow that, well, we encourage them, or we make them, sounds a bit harsh, but we make them do their presentation as many times as possible. So personally, I aim for 6 times. I want them to do their presentation 6 times during the during the 2 hours. Some people probably try and do more than that, maybe less, but if I can get my students to repeat their presentation 3 times in the first hour and then 3 times in the second hour with different partners, usually by the end they are sort of reasonably confident and competent in what they're doing. So that's the key concept, I think, of when the course was put together, is getting them to repeat and practice and do it as many times as possible. And it works. It's good. So I'm just going to move on now to a bit of a discussion, actually. We've got the context out of the way. This section will be about Annika, Rhea, and I discussing our experiences, and then we'll open it up to everybody else. So yeah, it's pretty simple. Basically, what I want to discuss about good things and bad things. What is one thing or some things that you do in your classes that work, and you might recommend to other people, and then what have you found to be the limitations, and something that maybe you still haven't been able to overcome, the difficulty that is still frustrating to you when you're teaching the presentations. So yeah, let's see if we can discuss the questions. Annika, what about you? Do you have something that you would recommend other people trying?
One of the things I do strongly recommend is having examples to show students. There are some examples in the book that the publisher supplies along with the book, but sometimes that's not enough. I find real live examples that have been submitted to YouTube, like examples of people with monotone voices, people with their volume way too high, people that are unprepared, people using verbal fillers, people not making eye contact. And I have the students analyze it so that way they can give feedback to each other, right? I want them to know what to look out for. Like, are you doing these things? If you're doing these things, you should probably try to stop doing those things. And they, of course, look at good examples as well. And we point out, okay, what's good? And then if they say, teacher, it's good, I push them further. What makes it good? Are they using gestures? What about the eye contact, posture? What makes you think it's good? Like, I'm trying to push them to give valid reasons for why something could be considered good or why something might be considered poor delivery, as far as that goes.
Yeah.
So I think examples are really great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's really important, to have the students see as many examples of presentations in general as possible. Like, that's the benefit to me of having them on a forum. Even the classmates, they can see their classmates' presentations. They may not have done presentations before. They really, they don't really know necessarily what it entails. But the more examples, I think, good and bad, that they can have access to, the more they just get a sort of more rounded picture of what they should be doing.
It gives them the language to talk about these things. So being able to differentiate between content and delivery and what those pieces are is also helpful. So that way they can actually say, like, oh, teacher, eye contact.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're right. And I think one of the things that worked quite well for me is a focus on pronunciation. There was in the recent module that we studied, or recent chapter from the textbook, there's a focus on stress, word stress and intonation. And that's a really big thing for me, which I've found has been an issue with my students. That is very, like, their delivery is very robotic. It's very monotonous. I don't tend to find that they use many fillers and make that kind, those kind of mistakes. Tend to be fairly clear in what they're saying, but it's just very, hi, I'm going to talk to you today about my best friend. My best friend is called Jisoo. We go to the park, like that. It's like just flat. So for me, one thing that's been working quite well recently is really kind of drilling the intonation. Try and do something with your voice. Try and do something, anything. Go up, go down. Stop. Speak a bit more quickly. To do something. What about you, Rhea?
Okay, just to be clear, are we going to do these questions in two sets and focus on the recommendations first and then move to the challenges, or is this kind of a free-for-all?
It doesn't matter. I think it's okay. Yeah.
Then I have a few things that I can share. I'll jump around.
Okay.
Well, in relation to what you just said, something that I wish that I could, just to put it in context for people listening, this program is a pilot that was piloted by a different teacher and ran for a few semesters and then introduced to the whole staff. And one of the things that I struggle with sometimes is that we have to follow a very rigid structure, that we don't have a lot of leeway as much as we ordinarily would. So if I were to do this course again to address the issue that Nicholas is talking about, I would love to introduce readers' theater, which is something that comes from a special interest group called Performance in Education, that helps the students learn how to be more engaged in the way that they talk. by taking on like more emotion. And it's not just, they can't really mechanically be instructed to improve their intonation. They have to be engaged through feeling connected to the group, I think. And that would be a way that I would have liked to have done it. But because of the very rigid structure, lecture, presentation, I would have liked to have taken out maybe 1 or 2 presentations to have a chance to do like a creative video project or some readers theater. So that would be something that I would improve on in this class, but we have no control over this semester. That might come up next semester. But some of the things that I think work really well is it's an easy sell on the benefits of this class. This is not just a language class. They can completely understand that they're going to go out into the world and have many chances to use this skill no matter what field they're in. And I find, it's also a cultural thing. My Korean students are pretty good at developing their presentation. Like Nick said before, they get good content in there. I'm also teaching the upper level of the presentation. So I do have more advanced topics in one of my classes. And they do talk about, some of them are bringing in, explaining a medical practice that they're learning about in another class. So they can get quite engaged in the content. I would say the other thing that I really think about is, these books, as well as the whole class, were initially thought of to be as an offline, in the classroom, teaching presentations class. So I try to focus on using the time in what we call the lectures to have a lot of communication with the students. Like I look for the activities in the book that are going to let them really start to develop their thinking along the lines of what their presentation is going to be, where they're having discussions about the content that they will be presenting on. And I encourage them to think carefully about their topic. I always build into my rubric, does it look like you clearly chose a topic that you're interested in? Because everything will flow from there. Yeah, so if they don't choose their topic well, it's really hard for them. They get a little bit stilted. So I try to get them engaged in a conversation. And I like, for example, one of the lower level presentation class, I think it's number 3, is a prized possession. And, we have to make sure they don't just choose an everyday item like their phone or their computer. I like to like Annika said, I choose this particular bag, and like I like to model the presentation for them. And I say, look, you have to actually show the item and you have to show it from all sides. And in the book, it will say things like, don't choose something too small or people can't see it, etc., etc. And this is, in brief, this is a purse that I received from my late aunt, who was a traveler, and she picked it up in Mexico. And this is like an emblem of me remembering the essence of who she is. And it's actually made from recycled bottle caps. And I'll try to like make an example where they get thinking outside the box a little bit. So to reiterate, I don't teach it like a presentations class. I teach it more like what it is, which is a videography class. I make sure that there's a lot of communication in the lecture, and I make sure that they're choosing something that they're passionate about, so it's easy for the ideas to flow from there.
No, I agree with you. I think that's one of the main things is trying to engage them in the actual topic, so that when they do make the presentation, it's actually, they're actually into it and they actually want to make it. They actually want to talk about the topic that they're supposed to be talking about. So that takes a lot of work, I think, from, at the beginning of each sort of lecture class. Like you said, do your own presentation, model it yourself, find something interesting that as an example, like don't use a phone, don't talk about your phone, how about talking about something like this? And then as you say, showing them, giving them ideas. But that's a lot of the issue, is kind of
and before I forget, I just wanted to get these last things in. If you don't know the context, if you came late to our presentation, I've done this actual presentation on presentations before, and everyone has a different teaching situation. I think the difficulty of our situation, we have a wonderful management, we've got great coworkers, it's a well thought out program, but it's always a struggle to deal with the volume of students, because we have 230 students. We have to grade their presentation very detailed. Every other week we have 230 presentations to grade, plus extra things. Like we run a writing program with one-to-one tutorials on students, and it's just a massive volume of work dealing with all of the admin for this class. So just keeping up with it is a big challenge. I think that's my biggest struggle, in addition to all the other things that we have going on in our lives. Oh, and the program is run, so all the presentations are individual. And Nick was saying that he would have them practice like 6 times per class. That's more in the beginning part of the semester. At this point of the semester, they are doing presentations in front of groups of 5. So there's really only enough time for them to practice twice. And then the final presentation is a test, and they have to do it in front of the whole class, and they have to get it right on the first time because there's no videotaping. It'll be live. And if they don't get it on the 3-minute mark, they're cut off, and that's it. That's been another struggle for them to understand. For me, is the time management aspect and why that's important. So yeah. Okay. Handing it over to Annika and Nick.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's a lot of questions in the chat, which maybe I should address.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
So we got a question from Lisa. Says, do you ever have students prepare their presentations in class and get feedback from you, or do they only make their presentations at home? My students just make them at home, but the idea is the repetitive practice. I want them to make them better, like sort of iterate during the class. I don't say like, the one that you make, the one you make at home is not the final one. I always say to them, that's the kind of like the basic one, but you got to spend the time in the class making it better, right? If you need to edit your PowerPoint or you need to change something, then do it. Don't just do the same thing 6 times.
Yeah, we expect they come ready with something, but I've had students make some big changes in the class according to my suggestion or other people's suggestion. But we don't want them to just not like to spend the whole class trying to get 30 students individual instruction. It's kind of impossible. So most of our feedback comes through the grading system and the rubric. So we have a really good LMS, and you can design the rubric so you just click on exactly what expectations you have for that particular presentation. So it's easy to give really specific feedback. But building the LMS was a lot of work because we had very little time to do it. But we have a good system.
Yeah, we got another question about from Shannon's about says your students don't have any trouble preparing the content. Have you ever had issues with students simply using Papago or other translators to write their speeches in English? I don't know, Annika, have you?
I'm sure there's students that have been trying to use Papago and other things like that. But one of the things that has helped with this class is the semester before they do their English communication class, and there is a lot of writing and there is a lot of speaking in there where they can't really rely on Papago to save them. So it was really important to have that class before they got to this one, so that way they were prepared and ready to handle all of this. As from what I can tell, if there is translators being used, like it doesn't look like it's too much. I know for my classes, I have a template basically. Basically, they can like look at it and they can take out the words that don't have to do with what they're talking about, and they can change them. And if they're more advanced, they can just like, delete the entire template and just like follow the structure of, opener, topic statement, and preview. And
that's a strength of the book too. I think it has a lot of modeled language that you can just point out, okay, what you need to do is look at these pages, and you can model it around those expressions.
Yeah, so as far, like the book is actually very good. Like I was one of the people that helped like pick the books for this course, and there's not a lot of books to choose from. They present themselves as presentation books, like a lot of them, but what they really are is just how to write an essay, and then like some very non-important things that are added to look up. I mean, sure, look up is important, but like they're not explaining the reasons and the why and the how of why you would do certain things for a presentation. But these set of books like do offer like really solid help for
Yeah.
creating the
Let me
content.
just get to one more question, which is, are they recording every time looking at their scripts? No, they don't record more than once.
They do in my class.
They do in your class. Okay, my class.
Yeah, and
They
then they
don't. But,
choose their best recording.
oh, do they?
And yeah,
Yeah, me
sometimes
too.
I will have them record and then check the time on the recording, and then if it's too long or too short. So that way, and also if something malfunctions, and as long as they're in the class trying to do it, if they want to go home and do it on their own time again, I'm not going to hold them back if they want to try to do better. But if they just don't show up, like at this point now we're on presentation 4 out of 6 presentations. Altogether, they do 7 presentations for this class. And so by presentation 4, they have to have actually been in the class to try it, because we want them to practice in front of other people. That's the key point. But I have them make several recordings and then choose the best.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. So thanks for the questions. And thanks, Annika and Rhea, for chipping in. I thought I would, this part of the session would be to open it up to discussion to everybody. So we don't have that much time left, but like 10 minutes. So I was thinking maybe we could go into some breakout rooms and discuss same questions. I don't have anything more exciting for you to talk about, unfortunately. Same things. If you've taught presentation classes, something that worked for you and something that hasn't worked, basically. And I suppose if you haven't taught presentations, then maybe what would you do, or any good ideas maybe that you've picked up or anything like that. Okay. So thank you. How many people do you normally have in your breakout rooms?
We have 12 people here. Maybe 3 or 4 people per room would be good.
Okay, let's go 3 breakout rooms. Okay, guys. So yeah, I suppose the last few minutes, just a quick discussion.
Fantastic. Okay. Looking forward to seeing you in there.
Okay, see you in a second. Maybe my computer's going to work. Okay.
Oh, and you can stop record.
Yes.
Yep, thanks.
I think Annika